Oh, my.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the David Madison after party. Of course, we have David with us again, and we have the lovely Lavender Lady who has also joined us. If anyone would like to jump in, let me know in the chat right now. By the way, David, I forgot to tell you, if you look to the, I believe it's to the right on your screen, you'll see a slot there that has the comments. If you want to click on the comments or the live comments, it'll show you what people are talking about there.
Oh, yay. I keep forgetting to mute the YouTube page.
Oh.
So we had two versions of the conversation there, and I hope none of it came through to you.
No, none did.
Oh, good.
All right. So if any of you guys do want to jump in, just let me know or send me a message on Twitter if you like, and I'll because that'll bump you to the top of my message list, and then I can give you guys a link and you can jump in. Okay. So David, let's get into number 9, because I think we left off the initial conversation at number 8. So let's talk about this number 9.
Well, number 9 is what would Jesus do?
Oh, yeah. Like the bumper sticker.
There we are.
I belong to Jesus. Well, come on, guys. You're not reading the New Testament. You're not reading the Gospels.
Right.
If you read the Gospels, and I'm up to episode 27 now, and things we wish Jesus hadn't said. I'm aiming for 50, and then I'll put out a new book entitled 50 Things We Wish Jesus Hadn't Said. I mean, you can find the lovely stuff there. 8th chapter of John, with a woman taken in the act of adultery. Whoever's without sin, throw the first stone. That's cool.
Well, that's an interpolation anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That was not in the original John Gospel. It was added later by somebody. It even ended up in some manuscripts in the Gospel of Luke, but there's this whole genre of literature called, the miracles of the saints or the tales of the saints. The Catholic Church is filled with these stories of the saints. This looked like very much like that kind of story, and it got attached to Jesus. But
you jogged my memory. I'm an ex-Catholic, so I had that all around me when I was growing up.
But Bart Ehrman's book, published, 20 years ago now, Jesus the Apocalyptic Prophet. And you really, especially comes across in Mark, and you really can't get away from this, that the kingdom of God is at hand. It's about here. And Jesus at his trial supposedly promised the people sitting there at his trial, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, that didn't happen. And other places he states that the coming of the Son of Man, there will be more suffering than at the time of Noah. Really? Almost everybody on earth was killed off. That's what you want to happen when Jesus comes back? This is not good theology.
No.
And you go to the Sermon on the Mount, and don't refuse to give money. Don't refuse anybody who borrows from you. How many Christians follow that?
Yeah, well.
Okay. Do not lay up treasures for yourself on heaven. Okay, all you Christians with pension plans. Do you follow Jesus on that one? Or his preaching about divorce, which is obscene, which is immoral.
Mm-hmm.
What God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. You mean God arranges all of the marriages on the face of the earth and has done forever? All the horrible, bad marriages?
Apparently.
This is bad theology. So, as I say, I'm up to episode 27 of the things we wish Jesus hadn't said. And then the 10th chapter is about Paul, the delusional cult fanatic. I mean, come on. He never knew Jesus, never met Jesus. He had visions.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We call them hallucinations.
Yep.
some doctors have called it frontal lobe epilepsy.
Wow.
And he was fanatical about these delusions. He didn't care about the parables of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus, the miracles of Jesus, the incidents in the life of Jesus. He apparently didn't know about them. New Testament scholars have been very big on this concept of reliable oral tradition that the Gospels are based on.
Right.
Give me a break.
Mhm.
Stories are told over and over and over again for 40 or 50 years, and you call that reliable?
Yeah, and have they not heard of the broken telephone game?
Exactly. Exactly. If you came home from church, my favorite story is of Calvin Coolidge. He came home from church and his wife said, what did the preacher preach about? Sin. What did he say about it? He's against it. If you ask Calvin Coolidge or anybody coming home from church, I want you to quote me verbatim, exactly, word for word, 3 sentences that the preacher said. Make no mistakes. Could you do it? Nobody who followed Jesus around had a pad of paper and a pencil.
Nope.
Why would they want to write things down? Did they rush right home and write things down?
Could they write?
95% of the people at the time were illiterate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this reliable oral tradition, Paul traveled as much as anybody in the Christian communities at the time, and he didn't pick up on this stuff because it wasn't there. So he was obsessed with the celestial Jesus.
Yes, yes. Now, there's something I'm wondering about when you were mentioning, the sources and that sort of thing. I've worked with a number of people who have, a couple have been preachers, a couple have been people who studied this sort of thing, and they all maintain that those of us who want multiple attestation and reliable sources and that sort of thing are all full of crap, because how much multiple attestation is there for Julius Caesar or Socrates, they say? And, would you doubt the existence of Julius Caesar or Socrates simply because you don't have all of this attestation? What do you say to those people?
Well, I refer them to Richard Carrier's book on the historicity of Jesus, because
I need to read that.
He covers that explicitly, how there is much more documentation, much more documentation for the life of Julius Caesar than there is for Jesus. We have statues of Caesar based on what he really looked like. We have his effigy on coins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not siding with them at all. No, don't get me wrong here. It's just I'm curious how you respond to that, and thank you for doing the response. Yeah,
but it's just a dodge. They're just trying to divert attention away from the fact that there is no contemporary documentation whatever for Jesus.
I like what Flow State has to say. Yes, I mean, is there anyone who could doubt that I am had by a cat? I don't know if you can see all the cat fur going on up there, but Sylvia definitely loves to leave her fur all over me.
Plus, it's that time of year where they start the shedding.
Oh, yeah. And climb the curtains and eat the house plants. So what did I do? I got another house plant. Yeah.
Got to keep them fed, Danny. Got to keep them fed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I also ask Christians, just read, if you can stand it, read the letters of Paul, which are difficult to plow through, and just add up the things that you do not agree with. The Lord is arriving soon, so please, all you men who have wives, act as if you didn't have wives. He would have made a great marriage counselor, right?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't all too thrilled with the idea of marriage and that sort of thing anyway, was he?
No. He wished people could be like he is, single. It is best
Eternally single.
It is best for a man not to touch a woman.
Now, why is that? I have to disagree with that. But.
If you belong to Jesus, you have you have sacrificed all desires of the flesh.
Mm.
Really? Really?
No.
No.
Well, I wonder how much that he doesn't write about who he's attached to. Does anybody ever had the idea that Paul might have been gay?
Oh, that's been floated around, but I certainly hope not. We don't want him.
Maybe he was an incel, like Flow State here suggests.
No, he was. He had one obsession, and that was the risen Christ is the way to inherit eternal life. That was his main focus. He was obsessed with that. He was a typical cult fanatic.
Yes, absolutely.
And it is just mind-boggling, to use a cliche, but if you look at the enormous output of scholars just on the letter to the Romans, I have on my desk in front of me a 1,000-page commentary on Romans by one scholar. 1,000. I mean, they think that the truth about God is embedded in this work. Martin Luther said the book of Romans, the letter to the Romans, Christians should memorize because it's so important. I was talking with a woman, this was years ago, and I mentioned the letter of Romans. This is a devout church-attending woman. I mentioned the letter of Romans to the Romans. She said, I don't know it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I don't know it, she said.
How devout can you be if you don't know stuff that's...
Well, Robert Connors has said most Christians know butkus about what's in the New Testament, and that's true.
No, I'm with you for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the church gets away with belonging to Jesus, and what would Jesus do? Because people don't read the Gospels. And if they do, and they're evangelicals, they read it under the close tutelage and supervision of the apologists who come up with excuses for all the bad stuff.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
Jesus.
Paul was a crooked as hell, and is the equivalent to Joel Osteen.
Okay. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus didn't really like these kinds of places either. Like, I believe there's, I can't remember where it's printed, but in somewhere it says, "Build no temples unto me," if I remember correctly.
Now you've got me digging through my memory, and
That's not ringing a bell, but
it may have been Older Testament.
of course, what's the dilemma here is we really don't know at all anything that Jesus said or did. It comes to us through the fog, through the filter of the gospel writers. Each one of these gospel writers had his own agenda.
oh, here we go.
That's why Luke can say, can have this Jesus script about hating your family. Right before that is the parable of the great banquet. Guy gives a great banquet. He's invited a lot of people, and at the last minute, everybody has excuses why they can't come. So he sends his servants out into the lanes and the highways to pull in the people, the lame, the blind, the unfortunate, to come and enjoy his banquet. It's great, right? Nice concept. Did that come from Jesus? Who knows? But Luke wants to put the brakes on that. You just can't show up and be in the kingdom. The Jesus cult had standards. The Jesus cult wanted people who were not going to be swayed by family loyalties. And that's why you have this punch, this hard-hitting Jesus script. Unless you hate your mother and your father, your family, you cannot be a disciple. The Greek word missio is right there. Hector Avalos has a 39-page chapter in his book, The Bad Jesus, about this text and about how Christian apologists have twisted themselves into pretzels, trying to tone it down, trying to get out of it, trying to make sense of it, trying to have it not damage Jesus. That's the very first episode in my series on things we wish Jesus hadn't said. But Whether it's you wander through the letters of Paul or through the Gospels, you'll find things that most Christians, if they didn't know it came from the Gospels and from the letters of Paul, they would say, "What crap? We don't follow that. We don't believe that."
Since when do you get to dismiss certain parts of the Bible and just go with other parts? You often see a lot of cherry picking, actually.
Oh yeah. I don't know if there's anybody out there who does not cherry pick. As I've said many times, if there are 100 people in a room, there are 100 different gods, 100 different religions.
Oh,
And everybody
of that
makes
God.
their own. Yeah. So, to some extent, everybody follows their own set of rules.
I think it was Bart Ehrman who said Christians create the Jesus of their imagination.
Yes, it
Mhm.
was Bart Ehrman.
Mhm.
You know,
And I am a big fan of Bart Ehrman. I will admit that.
the Jesus that you want, the Jesus that you love, the Jesus you've been taught is so terrific. It's a carefully constructed one, constructed by the church, constructed by Sunday school teachers, constructed by children's books, children's Sunday school storybooks.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I was always kind of partial to the Korean Jesus myself.
Now, wait a minute. Are you referencing the way the Koreans see Jesus, or was that just
There are pictures of all kinds of. There's like the Mexican Jesus, the
okay.
Middle Eastern Jesus, the white Jesus, the Korean Jesus. There's all these different pictures of what Jesus.
I'm going to have to look for the Korean Jesus now.
Oh yeah, Google that. It's quite funny. Quite funny.
I do like the one. Who is it that came up with the accurate Jesus, or what was supposed to be the accurate Jesus? He looked like a
oh yes.
basically a bum, a fisherman, nondescript, the whole bit.
Which looks like a Middle Eastern man.
Yeah, I wish I could remember who did that one.
Olive
I
skin.
cannot remember.
Yeah, I can't. The meme Jesus, yeah. Jesus has literally become a meme these days, it seems.
Yeah. Okay, let us look for the image. Oh, okay. Yeah, is it the jacked Jesus or whatever it is? And then I see another one with, God, I'm trying to think of the character that this Korean Jesus looks like. Yeah, it's looks like Pat Morita. That's what he looks like.
Pat Morita from Karate Kid.
Yes.
And Happy Days. Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Oh, boy, boy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of different images of what people want him to look like, I suppose. But, I don't think that helps the situation.
Over the years, I'm saying to myself, why can't people see through this?
Yeah, me too.
Oh, man, I don't know. Is it that the indoctrination is that dark of a contact lens?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
I have a line in my song, Let It Go. It says, I too once peered through deluded eyes, but since changing my prescription, I could see right through the lies, right? So,
Okay. Because I don't know, I got lucky, and let's not go too hard with me. You're the guest here, David, but I guess I got lucky in the sense that I grew up a Catholic in a neighborhood where it was a identity badge, basically. They could not recite a plank of Catholic dogma if their lives depended on it. But it was the whole us versus them.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it was easy for me to leave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is good. Somebody proposed this question, somebody that I'll be interviewing actually in April, proposed this question. Why is it that we are all automatically sinners through Adam, but not automatically redeemed through Jesus?
Good point.
But because then they lose their ability to suck you in. That's why.
Well, don't forget the power of the gimmick here.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I mean, like the other ancient mystery cults. You had to belong to the cult. And the perfect magic formula, the magic spell that I mentioned from Paul, Romans 9. If you say with your lips and you believe in your heart that God raised Jesus from the dead, you will be saved. It's something you got to do.
Yes.
It can't come just automatically. It's something you got to do in order.
You got to earn it.
You got to earn it. Now, that's the way so many religions work. You got to do what we tell you to do. You got to believe what we tell you to believe. Guy Harrison, in one of his books, said, if God calls all the shots, why can't he just forgive us, the automatic part, rather than going through the brutal human sacrifice? Why is that necessary? If God is good and powerful and calls all the shots, why can't he just forgive us? And in fact, that's one of the themes of the Old Testament. God is a forgiving God. I mean, that's one of the nice themes of the Old Testament. The Old Testament always stresses how much God is a mean, vicious bully.
He was in the Old Testament.
It's really interesting when you look at that too. With, okay, that particular thing in the Old Testament, God is a forgiving God. But as far as I understand it, the resurrection is based upon the ritual of Yom Kippur, with place your sins on the goat and then sacrifice it, that sort of thing. So that where's that nice? But I don't know. maybe I'm full of it. I don't know.
Only full gods are welcome tonight.
There we go. Hi, sweetness.
Why the hell am I here?
I christen you.
Okay, all right, there you go.
Dominic Frisco.
Some for you, some for you, some for you. You're all full gods tonight.
Yeah. Have I given you a wrench yet?
I don't know.
I don't have the YouTube chat up, so I can't really tell in the side chat on this one.
Oh,
wait a minute. What are you called on the YouTube?
Flow state. Flow state.
I'm the one who's talking shit on your shit.
You are flow state. Okay. Yeah, there you is. You has the wrench. You have the spanner.
Okay, good. Spanner. Yeah, my good friend Chris is in the chat now as well. He's got a show that I think he'd probably love to have you on too, David. He does a show called The Daily Atheist. He does a morning show, and oftentimes he'll do an evening show too. He's had a lot of really great guests on his show, and we kind of have this thing where we'll
no, he hasn't had me yet. How can he have the great guests if he hasn't had me?
That's it. I'm muting you, Dan.
Well, I'd be glad to be on any podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
you've got stuff that you gotta shill out there. Because I think from what I've seen and what like the little clips of the book of yours that I've read so far, it's absolutely fascinating. So I need to have that as a part of my library.
I'll drink to that.
Way ahead of you. This is interesting. The God's forgiveness of sin and covenant for humans is wrapped up in Jeremiah 31 and fulfilled by Jesus. Apparently.
I don't remember Jeremiah 31. Okay, let's go look it up.
Well, David, you're an ex-preacher, so how do you respond to something like that?
Well, Matthew especially was good at going through the Old Testament and finding things he thought applied to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can play that game forever.
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah 53, the suffering servant. Oh, that applies to Jesus.
Right.
You want it to apply to Jesus? Sure. Nowhere in the Old Testament, absolutely nowhere. Jeremiah 31, Isaiah 53, nowhere says the Messiah is coming during the Roman era in the form of a man named Jesus who came from a town named Nazareth.
Right.
That's a prediction.
Yeah, it is. And it's very easy to fulfill prophecy after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easiest.
But that was the game the early Christians played. We will find texts in the Old Testament. Paul was very good at that. Matthew was very good at that. They read Jesus, their concept of Jesus, into the Old Testament texts.
How many of those same prophecies could apply to Neil?
That's a good question.
You pays your money and you takes your choice. You know. That was what I,
that I'm going to have another beer. Oh, look at that.
Paul was very good at. Paul got his information about Jesus from the Old Testament, as well as from his visions, because he never knew Jesus.
Right. Well, he only had visions, as you've been saying. He only had visions of Jesus, which could easily, in modern times, be described as hallucinations.
Yeah.
It's like Joan of Arc. As a matter of fact, Joan of Arc was known to have conversations with God until they realized, looking at her, taking samples from her decayed body, I guess, found out that she actually had schizophrenia. So, or a form of schizophrenia, and that's why she heard.
Most Christians think that Joan of Arc was Noah's wife. That's old. That's as old as I am.
I was going to say your firstborn is 2 years younger than me. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was a '66 baby.
Okay.
Child.
Yeah. Oh, I'm still a child. That's why I have that T-shirt, Danny. You know that.
There you go.
I'm not like most teens. I'm in my 50s.
All you boomers.
That's where the first.
I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. I think there are only two boomers in this conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm one.
Yeah.
I'm the other one.
Well, I was born in 1942.
I'm 16 weeks older than Sputnik and proud of every damn minute of it. Sputnik flew October 4th. I was born July 20th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and if that date sounds familiar, yeah. We'll discuss that on my birthday again.
I have no idea what that means. You lost me on that.
You know about my birthday present.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Houston Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Yeah. Okay, right.
You remember the trouble that Nixon got into the week of the moon landing? He says, this is the greatest week in human history. Landing on another planet. and Billy Graham said, no. The greatest week in human history was Holy Week, the resurrection of Jesus.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah, he and Billy Graham were fast friends, weren't they?
I don't know how fast they were, but Billy Graham managed to get into the good graces of so many U.S. presidents.
Mm-hmm.
But his children have gone completely off the...
I was just about to go there. Yeah, I was going to say I wish that his son were a little closer to his father.
And his daughter. His daughter's a piece of work, too.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that are kind of off the rails, like Hovind.
Oh, my word.
And his kid, too, is just a nut bar, too. But are you familiar with Aaron Ra, David?
Who?
Aaron Ra.
Yeah. I don't know him. I've never talked with him, but I know who he is.
Oh, I've hung out with him, drank with him. He's a hell of a nice guy. But yeah, he takes the Hovinds to town constantly, having conversations with them because they're all anti-evolution, of course, and they all think that the flood actually happened. And I don't doubt that floods have happened in our history, but there's never been a global flood. That we know for sure. There's never been.
Yeah, I think we're pretty sure that we know the flood upon which that legend is based in the area of Sherlock around 2900 BC.
The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Epic of Gilgamesh, yeah. I think there's another one, too, that's actually pre-Gilgamesh, that Gilgamesh brought some stuff from, too, but I can't remember. Who'd be good to talk to about that is Josh Hammurabi.
Yeah.
He would know more than I would. Or Digital Hammurabi, which is a very interesting YouTube channel, David, if you ever feel like checking out. Is Dr. Josh, and his last name is escaping me at the moment, but the channel is called Digital Hammurabi, and it's funny because he's sort of I think he refers to himself as more of an agnostic than an atheist, but his wife is a believer. Mm-hmm. But they both do the show, and they both talk about the historicity stuff, and they both talk about the Sumerian links to the stuff and all that.
The atheist believer combinations really, what's the word? I stand in awe. I wonder how they do it, because there's Josh and Megan, there's Seth, and what's his wife's name? I forget.
Is it Nancy? Natalie, that's it.
Yeah, she's a believer. And I'm sure there are others out. Seth Andrews, the thinking atheist is who I'm speaking of, David. He's another fun person to listen to. Some tremendous insight.
I see. So apparently you and David, or you and Chris both post your scripted videos in some of the same groups. You're members of the same group. I would say reach out to him, and I'm sure he'd be happy to have you on the show.
Oh, great.
Absolutely. He's always looking for new and interesting people to have on there. So, and
I'm not sure how new I am, but I'm interesting.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I know that already just from watching some of your videos, and I think some of the best people to talk to about deconverting are people that used to be ministers or preachers or priests, because in my mind these are the ones that were fervent believers, and if these people can change their minds, that should be persuasive enough to have others change their minds.
Yeah,
in my head anyways.
Well, of course, what they'll tell you is, they were never real Christians. They played the game, and
that's what I've been accused with.
Man, isn't that just unnerving, among other things?
Chris, it's easier to get a hold of David on Facebook than Twitter. You don't really use the Twitters that much, do you, David?
I try to be on it, once a day, but I'm much more onto Facebook. But I'll go. I can send him my email address on Facebook.
There you go.
Message.
There you go. That's how I got in touch with him and set this whole thing up, was through the email, Chris. So if you want to do that as well, you can do that. Just so you guys know, I have dinner plans coming up soon. I had some fish pakora as a snack when I got home from this little mom and pop place down the road, that little Indian couple that makes fantastic food. So
You had what?
Fish pakora.
What is that?
Sounds sketchy, doesn't it?
It's awesome. They give you this little dip to dip in. It kind of has some really cool herbal type tastes, and it's basically this just little nuggets of fish that they wrap in chickpea and they fry it, and then you dip it in the dip there, and you can put lemon on it if you want, and it's got a bit of a curry-esque taste to it, but it's delicious. So I often snack on it. Or their chicken pakora, and they also have veggie pakora as well. But it's
I'm finding stuff.
Chickpea flour type base and then you fry it up, and they're like, it's their version of an appetizer kind of thing, right? So
it's too bad I live where I live now. Where I used to live, I was within a stone's throw of many much Indian restaurants.
I love it,
and I could have gone down there and get one, get some of this prepared by the real thing, but I may look up a recipe and give it a try. Yay! I mean, I'm all for trying new things.
They don't give you a whole
but
lot.
Not that. No, I'm a lesbian. All right.
You do you, man. That's all that matters. Ted Flanders. I think Ned Flanders' brother is in the chat now. Ted Flanders. I don't know. They're going on about Isaiah 53 because I think Messenger said Isaiah 53 does not apply to Jesus, which I kind of, in my head, I'm like, how do you know that?
Well,
Were you around when they wrote the book?
I thought that the Jewish take on it was that the suffering servant was Israel.
I believe
Well,
so.
yeah, that's what it's commonly thought to be. Yes.
Okay.
Wow, there you go. We're getting some accolades already, David.
I'd rather go to the source.
Oh. Angel.
Angie Dell,
Yeah,
66. She was born the same year as me. We're like year buddies, whatever the fuck that means. But yeah, Angie, definitely sub to David's channel and hit the bell, and you'll get notified every time he comes out with another chapter in his multiple series that he does. And yeah, as soon as I get them, I'm all over them. See, I got to go with some of your back catalog. That's where I have to catch up on.
Yeah.
So,
and order the book.
I've got it queued up on my phone. I just got to do all the purchase finale stuff, but I didn't have enough time on my smoke break. There you go.
Yeah, now I'm going to have to spend some more money because, yes, I do want your book. You know, and I'm still reading RJ's book. Darn it! Another friend of mine wrote a book on the reptile-mammal transition.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
my two recent purchases were Peter Boghossian's "How to Have Impossible Conversations," and of course, the one I've been trying to get for a long time. Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism by Aaron Ra. So, yeah. and of course the Founding Myth by Andrew Seidel, I picked up just before those two.
Yay! Yeah, it's too bad, unfortunately, that it won't be going down to Texas this year. I mean, I'd love to grab the book and have Aaron sign the darn thing, but I'll get around to that one of these days. Well,
I'll let him know, and maybe I can convince him to send you a signed copy, Dana. Never know.
Yeah, we'll see. Donkey. I mean, I love him dearly. I really do. He's a great hugger, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't hug me.
Yeah, but, don't let little Andra know, right? She's got nothing to worry about.
Lalandra is awesome.
I wish I could have met her. She had other things to do back in July, and
to hear them together and bickering back and forth.
Talked about that, yes.
They're quite funny. All right, so David, what was it like after? I know you didn't come out to your congregation that you were an atheist. Did they know at all about your sexual preferences?
No.
Okay, you kept that away from them as well.
Yeah. I think there was a family in the congregation that I was very close with, and I think I was able to be honest with them about it. Mm-hmm. But in terms of being, I mean, I remember I was interviewed by the church. We called him the district superintendent, who was above all the ministers, and he was very curious as to why I was going through a divorce. I knew in his mind was there's another woman, but I wasn't about to give him a real scandal to deal with.
What denomination?
Methodist.
Now, so I can imagine that would have been very damaging to you had that come out, right? I mean, not only as a minister, but in every aspect of your life.
Well, interestingly enough, at the Methodist Church at the time was very liberal in terms of being really on the bandwagon about civil rights especially. But not so much on gay rights. And I actually, there was a minister, this is really amazing. There was a minister at the time who was gay and out.
Oh my.
And his partner lived with him in the parsonage. Okay.
Wow.
And he and I was very much in the closet. He was very much out of the closet. But we organized a one-day seminar to study the homosexuality and the church issue. And it was packed. It was very well attended. But here I was still in the closet. And, it wasn't healthy for me emotionally to be doing that, because on the inside I was, don't think it was too long after in the wake of that, that I made the decision to, I'd tell my wife, and that brought on that crisis. But you eventually weather the storm, and come out of it relatively whole on the other side. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When I kept my mouth shut for half a century, I assume it's rather obvious that not only am I lesbian, I am trans.
Oh,
so that was, when I finally had to come out, that was a whole bunch of fun. So yeah, I kind of know where you're coming from.
Oh, Chris is doing a little self-promotion here. You need to get Anti-Theist by Chris Mallard. Who's Chris Mallard? I've never heard of him.
Yeah, I don't know, some guy. Get in here.
Oh, is that the significant other?
Yeah, yes, it was.
Give him our best.
Hi, significant other.
Well, I don't think I've ever known the name of your partner. So
David
is also, so you guys could have a show like David and David, like McLean and McLean, but I've heard from a lot, like my friend, the Davids. So you both, that's how you save money on business cards, guys.
Nice, I like it.
Awesome, that's awesome. Now, are you guys legally married, or,
yes.
or is that excellent? See, I was
in
one of the excellent.
In 2008, we went to California.
Awesome, yeah, because it is legal there. I was one of the people that was in the fight here in Vancouver for gay rights, marriage, or the marriage equality thing that they were fighting around in the 80s here. Myself and a bunch of friends of mine went in there and helped out with all the promotions and stuff like that. So.
We were married on September the 13th, and the following November is when they passed the Proposition 8, was it, canceling gay marriage?
Mm-hmm.
But the court ruled that all the people who had been married during the time it was legal, those marriages were valid, because there was no law violated at the time.
That's right.
Right. And then it is written into the Constitution that there shall be no ex post facto law. So
and then 3 years later, after New York had passed the law of validating gay marriage, we got married again here in New York.
Wow. Really?
And it just so happened it fell on the same day.
all right.
So is this like restating your vows kind of thing?
Well, we got remarried legally here in New York.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you're covered in 2 states now.
We're covered in 2 states. A lawyer told us it's a good idea to be married here too, in the state where you live.
Okay. And it was on the anniversary.
It just happened to work out that way, because one of the people we really wanted to be there, she could only be there on the 13th.
Right.
So, but we really don't celebrate that as our anniversary. We began living together on May 18th, 1978.
Oh, okay.
So
that's more your anniversary?
That's our anniversary. So be 42 years this coming May.
So what do you guys do?
A great deal of sense.
What do you guys do for your anniversary? Like what's a typical, like, do you guys go out on a date, like treat each other to, like what do you guys do for that?
Typically we've gone out to a nice restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. But,
okay, so that's awesome. My anniversary is that normally I forget about them. Your typical moronic cis white guy. So typically I forget about them, and until I'm promptly reminded by the current girlfriend or whatever it may be. And then of course I make up for it, usually in spades, and take her out somewhere nice. One time I felt so bad that I made reservations the following day of our anniversary at a Greek restaurant, and I had from the doorway to our table with rose petals on the ground and all kinds of stuff, and she was just blown away.
Okay then.
Right? Yeah, she was blown away by it. She goes, "Okay, you're forgiven." I'm like, "Yes." That's $25 and some roses, and I'm off the hook.
It's probably her hustle every year from now on.
Yeah.
You got to keep turning up the apologies.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things I did when I proposed to one of my girlfriends, it never went anywhere, was she always wanted a Nintendo Wii system. This is back in the day, 2008 or so. And I thought, all right. And she also I had told her that I wanted to get engaged, and she was all for it. So I went and got a ring, and I put it in a little box, which I put in another little box, and then I put in another little box, and then I stuck that box with a couple of books for weight issues inside a Wii box. And when she opened up the gift and saw the Wii, she's like, "Oh my God." I go, "Oh yeah, look inside. It's awesome." She looks inside, she pulls out, and there's one of this is the Nitpicker's Guide to Star Trek: The Next Generation. And the other one was the Klingon English Dictionary. And what the hell is this? You know, I hate this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, there's more in there. And she goes inside and she pulls out the ring, and then she lost it right there. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And she goes,
"Where's my Wii?"
Yeah, that's exactly what she said later on after the camera shut off, right? Because I wanted to record this. She's like, "Where the fuck's my Wii?" I go, "Oh, it's coming. Don't worry." But yeah, that was pretty funny. You guys ever do anything like that? Like surprise each other with gifts like that kind of thing?
Oh yeah.
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 One of the coolest. Oh, go ahead.
Trying to think. Can't think of anything right now.
Well, this wasn't other than being a friend of mine that I used to live with. We used to watch a cartoon called Ren and Stimpy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Yeah. Right. Anyway,
welcome to my generation, Boomer.
Anyway, they had this thing on there called Log from Blammo, and everyone wants a log, right? Like I know the song by heart, by the way. And he got me.
We'd probably get nailed for copyright if we sang it, right?
Oh, probably not. I think it's in the grandfather clause area right now. But he got me the high fashion log.
Yes.
Came with the hammer and the nails where you could nail the clothing onto the log, right? He put it in this gigantic box, and he had like baby rattles in it and all other kinds of like boulders and stuff. And I'm picking it up and I'm trying, what is this? And I couldn't figure it out. And I opened it up, and it was this log. It looked just like log. It had the little branch part sticking out. And the hammer and a bunch of like G.I. Joe clothes that you could nail onto the log and stuff like that. I mean, it literally cost him next to nothing. And I was like pleased as punch when I got this. It was probably one of the coolest ideas that I've ever had as a gift. So it's stuff like that it cracks me up, and it's a lot of fun. I had a log for years until the damn thing dried out and splintered all over my room. So,
oops.
Yeah. Yeah, and little nails, and it was just too funny. He even had the beard you could put on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For GI log, he had the beard. It was awesome. All right, so what is it? You know, I've often heard from other folks from the LGBTQ community saying that it is actually harder to come out to friends and family as an atheist than it was as a member of that community. Do you find that?
Not for me.
No,
it was the other way around.
Really?
I mean, I came out as an atheist, and I got yelled at a whole bunch. Yeah, because well, you don't celebrate the holidays. You don't believe in God. All that bullshit. But when I came out as trans, they disowned me. So yeah.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from? the strong visceral reaction to transgender people. Where does that come from?
Lack of understanding, probably. Lack of empathy, for sure. Diana, you're muted. Yeah, you're muted. Looks like a system error. She's dealt with this before, so no, still can't hear you. You're gonna go out and come back in?
Gonna reboot.
Yeah, I can read her sign language now. So, did you find anything like that at all, David? Or
it's been so long since I came out as both.
Mhm.
My parents were both deceased by the time I came out as gay.
Okay.
No, I take that back. They were both deceased by the time I came out as an atheist.
Okay.
But I did come out to them a long letter, because I lived in Massachusetts. They lived might have been Florida at the time, Indiana or Florida. And the response from them was horrific. Absolutely horrific.
Really?
My father wrote me a hate letter.
Oh my goodness.
And there was a time I wondered whether I would ever see them again.
Mhm.
But my brother once said of our mother, she's the most Christian woman I know, by which he meant that as a compliment. And she would not let the break in the family prevail.
Right.
So one day out of the blue, she said, I'm going to come visit you.
I guess the mother came before everything else then.
Yeah. And she came to visit, and we had a wonderful time. And the issue never came up.
Wow.
But this just happened to be the time when Anita Bryant was on her anti-gay crusade.
Oh, geez. Okay.
She got the pie in the face, and she was the orange juice lady, very famous. And my mother just said at one point, Anita Bryant is a nutcase.
Oh, that's
So
good.
do you have an answer to your own question about where that visceral reaction comes from?
I don't. I'm just so astounded why people are so fucking upset.
Yeah, I don't get it.
What? I just, people are so violent about it, even more violent than sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother saying that about Anita Bryant was just her way of saying, And a few years later, when I took my husband to
Any better?
yes,
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
when I took my husband to meet them in Florida, within minutes after he was in the front door, my mother was showing him my baby pictures.
Awesome.
Okay,
Fantastic.
and even my dad ended up being cool about it.
Sometimes I think they that initial shock that they may not have seen coming,
Mm-hmm.
it might have just taken him, he's probably like Mr. Old School for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that wasn't common, or at least wasn't out in the open. And it probably took him a little bit, I guess, to get used to it. And as we say, he probably went through that anger stage, right?
I remember sending him a book. I can't remember the author's name, but the title of the book was Society and the Healthy Homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a very rational explanation of what sexual orientation is.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, her first reaction was that it was garbage, but she probably read it. She probably read it. So I'll pose the question again, Lavender Lady. Where does the visceral hate, violence come from? Why?
I can only guess, but I'm taking an educated guess on some of the things. My sister went looking through some things up in the attic that were all put away, and she discovered some letters between my so-called father and someone else, there may have been an incident while he was in the Navy. And he may have come to regret that incident very violently. As I say, I'm between him and a shipmate. And that if that occurred, I don't know, there's the possibility. If that occurred, that may have fueled some of the fire. I don't know. The funny thing is, I never got to tell them that I'm lesbian. It was just, hey, you thought you had a son. No, you've got a daughter. That did it. It was over right there.
When you say an incident, Dan, what is?
I'm guessing here, but it's an educated guess, that he and one of his shipmates may have had a relationship.
And he was upset about it or confused by it, or?
I'm thinking that he may have been confused by the whole thing. And even, even 60 years later, he may have harbored ill feelings. Yeah, because he entered the Navy in 1943. And I came out to those two in 2011. So I'm guessing here, as I say. With her, it's easy to tell. She did, thought, etc., 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 whatever he wanted her to think and do, etc., etc., etc. She was the good wife. I mean, she wore her hair a specific way because that's the way he liked it. Okay, so she was very much like, okay, in the motion picture Dead Poet Society, there was the boy who had the strict parents, and
yes,
they were going to send him to the military. Okay, his father's wife reminds me a lot of the female slimy bastard. Yeah, they are the slimy bastards. There's the male and there's the female.
Right.
So yeah, that's
I know. I guess they're not pleasant memories for you, but and sorry, we always kind of bring these sorts of things up, but I think
it's not that I'm feeling bad with the memories or anything. I'm a lot more at terms with that now than I was say 20 years ago. Well, no, not 2011, 9 years ago. Okay. I mean, as much as I disliked them back then, they were not the nicest people on earth. Let me tell you. It still hit me kind of hard, to be cut off that way. I had always hoped that something would get better, that somehow they would change or something. Never happens. But anymore, it's okay. Well, that's the way it was. It contributed to me being what I am, whatever that may be, for good or ill.
I don't like the term "that's the way it was" because it almost sounds like you're excusing the behavior, and I don't think you have to.
Oh no! I'm not excusing their behavior. What I'm saying is that did happen, so I have to live with it, and I have to come to terms with it. No, they were pieces of shit for having done that shit.
Okay,
but yeah, it's only too bad that I was never able to deliver a eulogy at either funeral, because I would have let them have it. Oh yeah, I had one all prepared.
Did you?
Look at that casket in the center aisle. Think of the person inside. Do you want to be like, okay, let's say him. Do you want to be like him? And then rattle off a laundry list that they very likely never knew, because this is.
You should do it on YouTube.
I should.
Yeah,
I'll have to think about that one. As far as the rest of my age peers, the cousins, They knew Uncle Ed and Aunt Lil. I knew Mom and Dad. They were not the same people.
Mhm.
And it usually works out that way.
I've known many cases like that for sure.
Yeah.
One face in public, another one at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a comment came up 5 minutes ago that is worth considering. Original scripture never had capitalized words.
Ah,
English translators choose capital letters as they interpret them to be. Well, the original scripture never had any punctuation.
that's right.
Or spaces. It was all.
It was just okay. So there's a lot of.
Well, it was Aramaic, was it not?
It was Greek. The New Testament was written in Greek.
Oh, I thought that was the first written one, but or the first translation was Greek. I thought there was another version that they lost. And
No. There's been speculation.
As far as
about
anybody
that.
knows, yeah.
okay,
But all of the Old Testament is in Hebrew, except for part of the book of Daniel, which is in Aramaic.
maybe that's where I got that from.
But I mean, this is one of the embarrassments of trying to maintain that the Bible is the Word of God, because there are no original manuscripts.
Right.
All the originals have disappeared. They've been lost, and the earliest complete version of the New Testament we have, I think, is the 4th century. So one of God's biggest mistakes, if he inspired the Bible, why didn't he have Johannes Gutenberg come along 1,500 years earlier? Because if the Bible had been printed right after Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John had written it, then all of these copying errors, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of copying errors. And of course, Bart Ehrman covers that as well.
Yes, and very well, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
But the way the Bible got to us, it was a very, very sloppy process. Does not speak well for the so-called perfect deity who inspired it.
Well, it's one thing I've always said: if this God is as omnipotent as he is, he could have very easily just snapped his fingers and a book would have appeared. That no matter who picked it up, if this is the most important message for humankind ever in the universe, anyone who picked it up, if they could read, or maybe even if they couldn't, that they would be able to understand it in whatever language they spoke.
And along those lines, I don't think it wasn't me who said it first, but on Easter morning, why didn't Jesus show up at Pilate's house, knock on the door? Hi, it's me again.
It probably hurt. I wouldn't do that either.
Yeah.
Okay. The last time, 3 days in hell, that's a long time.
Why didn't he appear to Caesar? And I think Richard Carrier said, why doesn't he continually appear all over the world?
Yeah,
absolutely. I think I covered that in one of my videos as well. You have
he does
this person appearing to there you go. To many much different people, and especially appearing with a message that at least some of them disagree.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of the toast thing, Jimmy did a video today where he made a grilled cheeses sandwich.
All right.
You got a sandwich maker that you can put the images right onto your sandwich.
One of my challenges to Christians, again, this is in the serious things we wish Jesus hadn't said. In Mark, the resurrected Jesus says there are 5 things the baptized Christians will be able to do. Lay your hands on people and heal them. Cast out demons. Speak in tongues. Drink poison. And what's the 5th one?
Handle snakes, isn't it?
Handle snakes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Don't those guys do that though and die all the time?
Oh yeah,
all the time.
But
But there's the other one.
to drink
Isn't-
poison. Let's have the Westboro Baptist Church try that one.
Oh my!
Yes,
But
please
isn't-
do.
Isn't that one an interpolation as well?
Yes, that's the famous,
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah,
that's the famous fake ending of Mark,
yeah.
which is another begs the question of the imperfect transmission of the Scripture.
Well, they don't even actually know the authors of those gospels. Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew
No,
were named. They gave them.
yeah, they're all anonymous.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
names were selected later.
Exactly.
And I love the people who insist that, well, yeah, these were people walking around with the Jesus character. And it's like, no.
No.
So this is probably in the deconversion video that I haven't watched yet. But what is Jesus a real person that got mythicized, or vice versa?
Depends
Well-
on who you talk to.
I'm asking David.
He was certainly mythicized, whether he was real or not, because that's what the Gospels are. They are mythicized
Mhm.
stories. Was there a real Jesus who existed? The best homework for that, Richard Carrier's 600-page book on the historicity of Jesus. Absolute must read. And then also David Fitzgerald's 3-volume work on Jesus, Mything in Action.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Curious, yeah.
Okay.
Now, what's your opinion on Ehrman's book?
Oh, did Jesus exist?
Did Jesus exist? Yeah, that's
Oh,
the one that I've read.
He was savagely crucified, forgive the expression, for the sloppy scholarship in that book.
Yeah, I remember Carrier and Price really ripping into him for that one.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out to this day if Ehrman wants to hang on to a real Jesus because that's the way he grew up and that's how he's most comfortable, or if there is some decent evidence for a human Jesus. I mean, if there was, that anything about him has been lost to history. Nobody wrote that shit down. And he wasn't even important enough.
But Carrier came out of the blue. He was a classical scholar, I think PhD from Columbia, and he tells the story in the beginning of on the historicity of Jesus. He was asked to read Earl Doherty's book. I forget the title, and it was Earl Doherty who. He wasn't the first to say it, that Jesus was a mythical character.
That was the Homeric epics and something or other. That one.
That Dennis MacDonald has written books about.
Oh,
that.
that's MacDonald. That yeah.
But
Okay.
Carrier tells the story of being commissioned. He was intrigued enough reading. He thought it was a crackpot theory that Jesus was a myth. But after reading Earl Doherty's book, he thought, this is worth exploring. And he tells the story of how he was commissioned, how he was hired to do this study. First book was Proving History. And then the second book is On the Historicity of Jesus.
Uh-huh.
I've read On the Historicity of Jesus twice. I'm reading it a third time now because the scholarship is so massive. I met Carrier last year when he came to speak in New York. How does he do it? Because he doesn't have a staff of graduate students to do all this.
Yeah, he's flying solo. Yeah.
But and that's one of the reasons why the world of biblical scholarship resents him so much. He's come out of left field. He's come out of the blue. He's an atheist, and he's a specialist in their field. An atheist specialist in their field. And his credentials are impeccable. So, that book is basic, and it's not difficult to read. It's not steeped in scholarese.
I see this often announced by believers, and I want to know how anyone could know for sure, as it's put, that he existed. You can't. There's no way you can know that.
And mentions your reveals. I do have a question for you, if you don't mind. It's an honest question, please. Which Jesus are you talking about? Are you talking about a human Jesus, or are you talking about the Jesus of Scripture? Because, okay, you ask me, the Jesus of Scripture never could have existed at all.
Right.
Well, the gospel stories are so much fantasy and magical thinking and folklore. The miracle folklore has been borrowed from other faiths.
Well, that too. Yeah, I've seen that.
If you came up with a document tomorrow, somehow, aha, this proves that Jesus of Nazareth actually existed. So what?
Yeah.
So what?
You've still got all your work ahead of you to prove that he was the Son of God, that he performed miracles, that he died and rose again. Yeah.
And this is what has plagued Jesus scholarship for decades. The chaos in Jesus scholarship, because no one, absolutely no one, has been able to identify a methodology for teasing out bits of history from the Gospels. Nobody's been able to do that. They have not come up with a methodology for determining what gospel stories, aha, yes, this is a genuine story about Jesus, because there is no contemporary documentation whatever for anything Jesus said or did. It just doesn't exist.
Doesn't Ehrman try to do it with something he calls, I think it's the doctrine of dissimilarity or something like that?
There's all sorts of criteria for authenticity, but Carrier has a huge section in his book, Proving History, in which he analyzes all these so-called criteria for authenticity, and they don't hold up because there's no documentation behind them.
Right. There's no documentation really outside of the biblical stuff anyways.
Well, right. I mean,
one of the ones that I hear a lot of is the Tacitus.
Oh, please.
But it's
he was writing about Christians.
Hang on. Tacitus's original version apparently didn't have anything about Jesus until it was added to it later. I think it's some years later. And I'm not sure.
These witnesses are actually witnessing the fact that the Christian movement existed.
Yes.
Okay. But in terms of verifying any specific act, deed, teaching, verifying any specific act, deed, teaching of Jesus, they don't do that.
Right.
Even if we proved that Pilate existed, which is not difficult to do, so what? Novelists all the time put into their novels real historical people.
Absolutely.
That's what novelists do.
And the places as well. I mean, okay, New York is a real place, therefore Spider-Man exists.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the Avengers.
And Superman and Batman. I mean,
that's Metropolis and Gotham. Come on now. Get your You're talking to a comic book fanatic here.
So, Jesus existed for sure. Where is the documentation for that? As Ehrman said, there's nothing in the first century, no mention of Jesus.
Right.
And the interpolation in Josephus has been proved conclusively to be a forgery.
Yes.
That's yes.
Right. They're grasping at straws.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want the Jesus who, according to my calculations so far, has said 27 things we wish he hadn't said?
Probably not. I'm sure they've all got this pretty little picture of what they imagine Jesus to be. The wonderful guy, not the guy that yelled at and destroyed a fig tree because it wouldn't fruit.
Well,
fuck that tree.
Well,
yeah.
Well, they sure did.
A lot has been written about that, and apparently that is a metaphor for the destruction of the Jerusalem temple.
Yeah,
I've heard that one.
R.G. Price, in his book on Deciphering the Gospels, proves Jesus never existed. That's a provocative title. He says his thesis is that Mark's gospel was written as a metaphor for the destruction of Jerusalem in the year 70. I mean, you've got to study that book too. And then he maintains Mark wrote the metaphor, but then Matthew and Luke and John took it seriously. They thought it was meant to be history. And then you can see how Matthew got so carried away with inventing things. I mean, in Mark, the temptation of Jesus is what? 2 or 3 verses. In the desert, 40 days. And then the angels ministered to him.
Yeah.
Matthew expands this to about 10 or 12 verses and adds dialogue between Jesus and Satan. Was there someone there taking notes?
That's what I always like. Yeah.
He invented it.
Mm-hmm.
He even has Satan taking Jesus to the top of the temple, like a superhero. So, and Matthew has that famous, occurs nowhere else, talking about making things up. When Jesus died, all those dead people came alive in their tombs.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was resurrected on Easter morning, they walked around Jerusalem.
Yeah,
all these other resurrections.
What does that show if not resurrection was commonplace? It was nothing to rouse the interest.
I don't think you could say it was commonplace, but you could say it's a tall tale.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah. I mean, well, if it really existed, you have an entire city's worth of zombies walking around, and it's like,
do you have, whether it was 10 or 20 or 25 zombies walking around, that's a tall tale.
Mm-hmm.
How do you distinguish that tall tale from the Jesus rising from the dead?
You don't. No.
Why is that a tall tale? Especially since the 4 gospel depictions of the empty tomb, you can't line them up. They contradict each other. The story grew with the telling. One of the reasons Paul never mentions the empty tomb is because the story hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah, because Paul's writing in the 50s, and then you have the first of the Gospels, maybe around 70, 75?
Yeah, exactly. And even much later for John. But,
Well, John was written almost 2nd century, if I remember correctly, right?
Some scholars argue that, but, again, folks, Christians, read. That's why my on my website, there's my Cure for Christianity library. It's now up to 383 titles. My publisher, when the book came out in 2016, didn't want to add a bibliography. That turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I decided to add the bibliography to my book's website. And then I've been able to continually add titles. And then And then one point,
I have some of them too.
It occurred to me that Mark Twain's famous put down, "The best cure for Christianity is reading the Bible."
Yep, absolutely.
That's why I call it the Cure for Christianity Library, and I can keep expanding it as new books come out, as new books come to my attention, and the vast majority of them have been written since the year 2000. It's the atheist publishing boom, or the atheist publishing surge. It's never happened before.
Well, we figure it's about freaking time.
Exactly. Serious thinkers are saying enough with this crap.
Yeah.
And you're costing me a whole bunch of money. You realize this. Not only the damn books, I have to get new bookcases now because I have no room for any other books.
I see the fish tank.
Say again?
I see the fish tank. Put them in there.
Yeah, there you go. Those are my invisible fish in there. Someday I'll get that.
My friend.
Frustrated. Hi, how you doing?
Apparently, say hello. I just noticed that you popped in, Russ. I'm sorry, but I'm in a very, very interesting and in-depth conversation, which unfortunately has to come to an end because I have to go.
Okay.
You horrible person.
I am.
I'm going to be in touch with you more later, tomorrow and after Neil, to follow up on some of these leads.
You're going to which?
I'm going to be in touch with you to follow up on some of these leads you've mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. I know that Chris is going to get a hold of you through Facebook.
Okay.
And I will touch base. I think Christy. Oh, excuse me. I think Christy is in the chat. Christy, I think my guest tonight, David, would be really good on your show as well. With the humanist podcast thing that they do.
Okay.
And I believe I'll see. I think. What do you guys think? Seth Andrews could be a good one. I mean, of all of us, he's probably got the largest audience.
What, to send David over to Seth?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yes. Yes.
Seth Andrews likes to have, especially ex-clergy and stuff on his show.
Oh, if you could put in a good word for me there, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Seth is amazing, and I've had him on my show as well.
Oh, he's a big sweetie.
Yep. Met him at the Faithless Forum last year. He signed a book for me. He's a wonderful human being and a really, really good conversationalist. And apparently the two of us together on the same show put a lot of people to sleep. Soothing voices. I don't know. It's what I
don't know. Well, I don't know. Should I come up with my soothing voice as well, or how do you want to do that? See, I worked out.
Oh, Lord, Diana, you're going to start an earthquake somewhere.
Like Sean Hufford, I make stuff up. Anyway, and then of course I've got to get my wheels turning because I'd love to have you on, David, on my at least my Sunday show. Coffee with Lavender. And could you just see, Neil, David, with me, with Kate, and with I don't know if you're familiar with Tina or not.
I don't.
She's the Christian of the group, and then there's Kate and myself. Tina is Tornado's mom.
I could do that. My nieces used to love it when I did that for them.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your broadcast and the after party. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely, David. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Okay.
And just so you know, you're always welcome to jump into any of these after parties if you happen to catch them as I post them.
Okay.
You're welcome to come in and shoot the shit with us anytime you like.
Okay.
I have actually Mr. Just a Demigod, Not a Full One, will be coming up on my show soon in April as well, too. And of course, guys, Richard Carrier this Wednesday. Just to give you a heads up, it's also my blood donation day, so there will not be an after party. I pretty much have to run out from here, from the show, which I may cut a little bit early, and leave to go because my appointment's at 5:25, and it takes me about 25 minutes to get there, if not more, depending on traffic. So, and there you go, Christy. I will put you in touch with David. I'll send you his email, and you can send him an email.
Christy, hi! I didn't see you come in, sweetie.
And you guys can set it up. You and Matt can set it up with David.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, thank you for coming on Neil's show. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
You. Now, Neil, go get yourself a good meal so you can donate blood.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to eat lots of broccoli tonight and spinach. All right,
broccoli is a food group. Come on.
Yeah, broccoli's awesome, man, especially when you dip it in that cheese sauce.
There you go. There you go.
Anyways, or ranch dressing or something like that. All right. Yeah, I know. Christy's like, I want to talk to Seth. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in, for hanging out with us for the hour and a bit that we did for the after party.
Okay.
Hour and a half, actually. And thanks, Lavender Lady, and thanks, Flow State, for joining me. That's actually what we call him, not just the demigod parties. He wears that Pope hat. That's why. So you gotta grab the Pope hat here. you go. There you go.
That's a beautiful thing.
I'm too lazy for the full gig, though. I just want half the job. I just want the power, not the responsibility.
I think I could agree with that. All right, guys. Until next time, like I always say at the end of these podcasts, like the late great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.